My name is Sarah Danziger. I'm the education program manager here at CBW. And we are thrilled to have you here for this week's Meet the Artists, which is made possible by a generous grant from the Arnold and August Newman Foundation. Now, it seems like you all know why you're here and who you're here to see, but I'll do a little brief intro as well for those who don't. Davis's talk, titled Kingston as Muse, is a biography of his long photographic history with the city. And if any of you have been wandering around the city, you might have bumped into him, which I've literally found him in our parking lot, unbeknownst to him. And he's like just wandering around taking pictures. Davis began photographing Kingston in 1987 and has been working there through many changing projects ever since. This talk is a story about the relationship between an artist and a place, and the place is Kingston. Tim Davis is a photographer, songwriter, and essayist who lives in Tivoli, New York, and teaches photography at Bard College, which you may have heard of. His works have been exhibited all over the world, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, MoMA, Tate Modern, White Cube, Knoxville Museum of Art, Museum of Contemporary Photography at Columbia College, Macro Museum, among others. He is the author of many monographs. I see a lot of them over here that I've not even seen in person, some of them, so I'm excited to play. Are any of them for sale?
No.
Nope. Sorry. He is the author of many monographs, including My Life in Politics, The New Antiquity, I'm Looking Through You, and Hallucinations. His next book, Normal Town, is due out from Fall Line Press this summer, so that's exciting. Can we all give a warm welcome to Tim Davis?
All of my, I'll say this into here. All of my usernames on all my things for many years were a word called empleomane that I made up. It means a lover of work. And so I'm always like working, which you'll be able to tell. All I want to do is work. So I always thought I might as well work while I'm doing one of these. So forever I've been photographing the audience. The thing about it is it's kind of a vanity project, right? You're like, oh, look at the people that came to see me. But the problem is it's with a view camera. It's very dark, especially in here. So you're going to have to hold very still, look at the screen or at the camera, and try to look like you're watching a very boring lecture. Imagine, if you will, that you're about to sit through an hour-long, very uninteresting talk. So you don't have to pose. Boredom is the winner here. So and you got to hold as still as possible. So everybody hold very still. No joking around. I'm serious. No rock, paper, scissors. No rock, paper, scissors. Just look in the camera and hold incredibly still. Ready? Thank you. That's maybe one more.
How long is it for?
2-ish seconds.
Getting model releases?
Nope. There's at least one person in here that doesn't want to be photographed. I know that. Ready? I'm still now. Okay, that should do it. Hopefully, hope there's film in there. Take a look.
Oh, yeah, there was film. Whoops.
Do these lights want to go down at all?
They do want to.
Okay, good. Let's do that. I called this talk Kingston as Muse, but that is a really terrible title. It's embarrassing. I think of myself as a good title guy. I think all my books have interesting titles. This is a bad title. Then I thought Tableau Kingstonien after Baudelaire's Tableau Parisien. That's terrible. I thought of Over the Mountain. That's where the bear went, right? The bear went over the mountain. Why did the bear go over the mountain? To see what he could see. So this talk is going to be about my relationship with this city, and it begins in Saratoga Springs, where I spent most of my youth. This is Walker Evans' photograph of it from 1931. My early photographs, I kind of unearthed this one recently, and it's amazing to me how little I've changed. So this is in probably 10th grade, and I've, asked this pretty girl out to a field. That's not not a field. It turns out that this is behind a camera shop that was right near where that hotel is. And you see in this picture a lot of what's going to be in my work, a kind of complicatedness, a sense of maybe being able to hold two or more contradictory ideas in a picture at the same time. I get this kind of deracinated space with this weird light, and then this kind of pretty young girl. She was gorgeous. I loved her. And then a sense of language and a sense of humor. So one day in high school, I went to visit my friend Graham Ridley. That's Graham. His mother ran and still runs the bookshop at the Omega Institute. And so I rode my bike down from Saratoga to visit him. He was like, "You got to come down here. There's a lot of going on down here that you're going to want to see." I rode through Tivoli, New York, where I now reside. And I rode through Bard College, where I applied to their early decision program and got in early. And as soon as I got into Bard early, I dropped out of high school. And I got a full-time job as a dishwasher at the Lord Jeffrey Amherst Inn, since renamed. I did that because I knew that Bard was in the middle of nowhere and that I would need a car in order to take pictures that I wanted to take. This is the car that I ended up buying, a 1980 Toyota Corolla with my dishwasher money. I've got incredible stories about working as a full-time dishwasher. I could give a whole lecture about that. And so I arrived at Bard, and there I am. Yeah, it's Laura Battle with my one of 3 cameras I've owned, by the way, in my life, that Nikon FM2. When I got here, I arrived at this amazing dialectic of these 2 photographers whose natures were completely opposite, Stephen Shore and Larry Fink. They were my teachers. One of them, a cool and removed and distanced, heady photographer, and one, a warm, humanistic photographer, one whose pictures are very Cartesian, and one whose pictures are very non-Cartesian, very fractal. So this guy, when he went out to take pictures, the logical place to go was Kingston. And Kingston turns out to be the exact same population size as the 3 cities that I grew up in: Amherst, Massachusetts, Saratoga Springs, New York, and Athens, Georgia. 3 college towns where I grew up. And I think that it makes perfect and logical sense to think of going to a city. I mean, one of the things that makes Bard's photography program interesting is that there isn't anything to photograph, and so people learn how to make interesting photographs of nothing, which helps them make interesting photographs of something when they get in front of something. But I was always like, I think I got to have something. This is the first, I'll get it. Remember, I'll get it. This is the first photograph I made and liked in Kingston, just walking up onto a front porch. And it was a picture that it's very Shorean. It's very just looking at a thing and trying to just capture the essence of looking without a lot of adornment. Where the print, this is an iPhone picture of an old vintage print, but I was hooked. I was hooked on this place. It's an unusual place, as we know. I don't even think of it as a place. It's a series of cataracts. It's a series of little communities cut off from each other by geology, right? It's got all these ravines and all these strange little nooks and corners. So I was really resolved to photographing here a lot. And at the time, I was really under the sway of two photographers. I started using a view camera, that very camera. And I was under the sway of two photographers, Sally Mann and Nick Nixon. And these were both photographers that used the view camera. It's like an amalgam of Stephen Shore and Larry Fink. They use the camera in a fluid, physical way, looking at people, but they have all that like intense resolution of the view camera. Can you hear me? Should I have said? At the time, everybody was reading this book by Jean Baudrillard, which posited that we can't see anything anymore. Whenever we look at a thing, we're looking at photographs and images we've seen of that thing before in the press. Now, this was before all of you had the Library of Alexandria in your pocket. And so this guy did a thing that is also very familiar to me. He kind of innocently thought, I wonder if that's true. And I wonder if I can use photography to find out whether that's true. And so I went out to sort of see, people can't look, they can't see anything anymore. They're only seeing images. I don't know, is that true? So I went out onto the streets of Kingston and I photographed people and I gave them things to look at. So you got to imagine me all around, largely in this neighborhood, Midtown, but other places too, with a big camera, a big bag of equipment, and another big bag full of objects. I used to go to Stan's used items and pick up a bunch of weird things and giving them to people. And I would try to wait until they weren't just looking in the direction of a thing, but they were really looking at it. Now, I don't know if that's real or imaginary, but it was an investigative idea, and I think that's a thing that's kind of been running through my work throughout. The other thing that when I look back on this work, just making this lecture has caused me to revisit lots of things, is that, nobody's looking at me. And one of the things I didn't know then was that I was like not necessarily totally a neurotypical person. And that just kind of like photographing someone looking back at me I've never been interested in that. That's always not been something that I know how to do well. I've done it. I can do it. There are a few pictures in here of that. And I think it's a little bit of a sign. I had to divert their attention away from me in order to make these pictures. Yeah. I kind of still think this might be the best thing I ever did. They're beautiful and they're kind of poetic. And I learned a lot about making a picture that is staged, that doesn't feel staged, right? So that's the thing about using a view camera. It's really almost all the pictures are staged, but you can make them not feel that way. So the project was called Wanting Attention. And wanting is a pun, right? It means both lacking and desiring. And that punniness and that layered complicatedness, see, I told you I was good at titles. It started way back then. That was something that, I thought encapsulated the idea of this. And ever since then, I don't know what I'm doing until I have the title. When I have the title, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm headed. I know what filter I'm putting on over my glasses in order to see the world in a particular way. So this is all around here. I'm just wandering around. It was the Reagan recession. So lots of people weren't at work. So it was another reason to visit Kingston, was just there were people there. There were people around, hanging around, and sort of happy to engage with me, happy to play a part in this little game. So I'm going to visit the part of this lecture which I call the interregnum. This is the part where I didn't live here and photograph in Kingston. I'm going to race you through this part really quickly because it's not really relevant, but I just thought maybe I better get you from this moment to get myself back here. So I graduated, I go do a lot of things, I try every job. I end up in New York. I call every photographer in the yellow pages until I get a job as an assistant. I work as an assistant. I'm also a poet all the time. And it turned out that poetry was a lot less expensive than photography. All you need are pencils, and you can steal those from the bank back then anyway. These are two of my books, and I got a job suited to a poet at New Directions Publishing on the 19th floor of this Art Deco building, publishing venerable and new avant-garde literature, the perfect job for an experimental poet. And I hated it. Hated it. I still have nightmares about it. I had them just 2 nights ago. I had the same nightmare. I'm back there working there again. Why am I here again? It was not a good job for me. And that's when I started photographing it again very seriously, taking myself seriously, photographing kind of flaws in the system in this little office, and also these reflections of objects in looking at the outside world in the office material. That got me back into being a photographer and went to grad school, where I then encountered these two guys, Gregory Crutzen and Todd Papageorge, also two interesting, dialectical, different kind of people. And while I was there, I started making these pictures. And you can see now, right, commercial spaces, I'm interested in that, complicated pictures. So these are pictures that were called retail, and they're pictures of little houses with reflections of global corporate signs in the windows. And again, like, I think of this as a kind of, right, holding more than one idea. It's a horrible thing, right? Our private lives are imposed upon by global, mindless, callous global capital, but the things are also like illuminated capitals of a medieval manuscript. They were like the most beautiful thing I ever photographed. That led to some other work looking at kind of reflections and looking at things in unexpected ways. So this work called Permanent Collection, where I looked at paintings in museums from a slightly oblique angle, also with the view camera so I could run the focus along the surface, looking at how that might change the meaning of the picture. I made a big body of work called My Life in Politics, kind of looking at my political world at a time that seemed incredibly divided, innocently, but also I wasn't willing to take a side. It wasn't an act of propaganda. It was interested in the complicated ways of looking at both sides. That was a big show at the Bowen Foundation. It was a book. So I'm living in New York, and one day I'm sitting in my 1991 Toyota Tercel, waiting for the opposite side parking rules. And I get a call on my cell phone. That's when cell phones looked like that for the youngins. That was the latest technology. From this guy, Steven, saying, "Do you want to come up here and teach?" And it just was like, I hated New York. I never liked it. I always felt the minute I got to New York, I thought, if I know about this, it's over. I never felt like, I've always wanted to be the only guy looking at a thing. I always wanted to be out on my own. Nobody's paying attention to what's going on, and I get to be the guy that is. So I kind of hated New York. I always found myself driving through the Holland Tunnel to go make pictures. So I thought, I got a vision of, like, I could buy a house back then I could buy a house. Get married, which I did. Interestingly, when I got here, I was still working on all these other projects. So you're not seeing tons and tons and tons of projects. But I didn't like delve into the landscape here right away. I started working on all these other little projects, including this one I called cartoon pictures. It came out of an assignment I used to give called the Xanax of Influence, which were to try to imitate an artist, your favorite artist, as slavishly as possible. And my favorite artist is B. Clyban, the cartoonist from the 70s. He had the biggest influence on me of any artist. And so I started making cartoon pictures. And just as I had before, Kingston was the place to go make them. Kingston, I've always thought, is my studio. I never have had a real studio practice. I have projects I've made in the studio, but I'm always like secretly looking over my shoulder like, do they know I'm here? So that's in the Barnes & Noble that used to be over there. This is in a funeral home not that far from here. This is called Coffin Full of Beans, which is based on an old funny blues song where the guy's like, beans, all I've got is beans, and then he dies and he ends up in a coffin full of beans. This is called Sad Balloons. That's in the where the Mother Earth's that mall is, and it's like empty. I met this girl like at some swimming hole, and I was just like, wow, she's the saddest, gothiest girl. And then I was like, will you be in my picture? This is over here on off Ulster Avenue, that like a toiletry, place where you get toilet bathroom things. I've always noticed that almost everybody that you want to spend time with navigates the world with humor, right? You don't really want to be around anyone that doesn't navigate the world through humor, but very few artists navigate their art through humor, especially photographers. I wrote an essay about this in Aperture called photogeliophobia, another word I made up that means fear of funny photography. This is called the Tower of Schultz. This is called Tiny Pianist. These are all photographed in Kingston and around Kingston. This one's called Fox in Flocks. They're all like staged managed, except this one, which is down in East Kingston. This one is just grayscale washing line. I didn't have to do anything to this. They provided the content for me perfectly. This one's called The Ice Dildo Harvesters of Punk Hockey. One of those, I think that harvester is here tonight. And then this one, Hobo Supermen. You really made it up here when you end up on the cover of the Chronogram. So I think what you're looking at here is Kingston is my studio, and my work is sort of like, again, polarized glasses. Like I go, okay, I'm going to put these glasses on that are going to help me see humor. And one of the next things I did that was in Kingston was a project trying to see sports in the landscape. Just the opening ceremony. So these are a few of the sports that I made. I invented new sports. These are all in Kingston. I'm the only one in these sports. It's interesting. It's like, those like guys that were on islands in the Philippines that didn't know the war was over, these Japanese guys, and they fought for years and years because I'm like that. This guy doesn't.
I photographed
photograph the ugly when you can photograph the beautiful?
This guy walks by and he goes, why photograph the ugly when you can photograph the beautiful? Great question. Kingston is full of roving art critics, turns out. So, you know, you go, if you walk around a landscape and try to see where you could do a sport, you're going to find them. I'm going to skip through some of this. It's called Not My Balls. So these are, I'm just going into people's yards and using their sporting equipment. You know that house? Yeah. This is somewhere out in the suburbs out there. I didn't get shot, which is kind of a miracle. I think nowadays I would have gotten shot. Also, I'm white. It helps to not get shot doing this. Last time I checked. My sister just posted a picture of my niece's 18th birthday of the day they spent out in Toronto walking around, and they were like, they went to all these weird buildings and stuff. And I said, I really like these pictures. And she goes, every time I see a no trespassing sign, I think of you. The owner comes out and he laughs. You can hear him one really unpleasant one coming up. I apologize in advance. You might want to look away for this next one. This was a show many places all over the world. It's been in biennials and things all over the place. It's been in airports. It was also a big show at the Dorsky Museum, and they made this great little catalog. It was a solo show at the Armory, and I made these trophies. I think this is the most fun I ever had. I mean, and I only went to the hospital once. At one point in this period, I got invited to go on this train that Doug Aitken made across the country called Station to Station. He invited artists and musicians, Cat Powered, all these people, and everyone seemed to just be getting drunk and have a good time. But my friend Joe Hagan and I decided that we would stop in the different locations and interview people about the idea of the American dream, and I would photograph them. So then when we got back, we started doing it in Kingston. This guy, Lucy, was on your street. So this is like wandering around, meeting people. And Joe Hagan, my friend, is like, he's a journalist. He writes for Vanity Fair. He's amazing at interviewing people and getting them talking. This was a lighting store on Broadway. Anybody remember it? Big lighting store really near here. It's not there anymore. It now sells artisanal whoopee cushions. I'm just kidding. But I think artisanal whoopee cushions would be a good idea. Now, we were really excited about this. I was excited about it. He was excited about it. His agent was like, we're going to do a book of this. This is great. And then this book came out, and this guy who's not good at photographing people or interviewing them, this book became like #1 thing in the world and crushed our hopes. So then we didn't keep doing it. Somewhere in there, I started writing a lot of songs. This is a record. Actually, I do have a couple copies of this record here. And one of them was inspired by an experience I had in this church, which is right there. I went into this church, I heard music, and they were saying this expression, Gloria al Señor, glory to God. And I started fantasizing that Gloria al Señor was a person. So I wrote this song. Some of this was filmed in Kingston, but not all of it. So you have to apologize. And I might cut it off in the middle because I'm trying to get through this all. Oh, that one I didn't sync up. Gloria al Señor knows what honeysuckle's for. It's for breathing in the white slate streets of Kingston. And Gloria al Señor likes to make love on the floor beneath the blacklight poster of Abe Lincoln. Gloria al Señor, Gloria al Señor. Gloria al Señor has a brother she adores, though he claims that he's allergic to the system. He sold his Purple Heart and bought a taco cart, which he's painted to say maybe he is risen. Gloria al Señor, Gloria al Señor. Señor will take you on a tour of the ivy-covered alleys you don't notice. Should photograph you twice, once naughty and once nice, and her eyes will fizzle out like orange soda. Gloria I couldn't stop it. It sounded too good. The next thing I'm going to show you is a project that is inspired by one of the great geological features of Kingston, which is the escarpment that the mall area is on, the mall area. It happens to look out over the Catskills in this kind of magical way, very reminiscent of our Hudson River School painters like Frederick Church, but this is the other one. No, that's Frederick Church. Sorry, Kate. The Cole House curators here, and I forgot to put it on. But one of the things I think about this idea of making images where you're holding more than one contradictory idea in them is that I never was like, I can't make a sunset picture. But maybe if you put a strip mall in the front, you can make a sunset picture. And so these pictures are called sunset strips. And I visited this, I would go to this escarpment all the time, different times of year. I ended up going all over the country doing it too. This work has never shown anywhere or been anything. It's incredibly frustrating. The hardest thing I ever did, because you can't rely on the sunset and you have to like post up in place, and they're all from an elevated perspective. So there's ones where I was in Denver. I was like, oh, look at this. If I climb on the roof of this school of the deaf, they're not going to hear me. Then I can get the sunset. And then the sunset would be like in another direction. You know what I mean? Like the sunset goes where the clouds are. It doesn't necessarily go where the sun goes. So I spent lots of hours in a way that was very frustrating to me. And I'm not the kind of photographer that wants to plan all day to make a picture and then have it not work out. That's like not my bag. I don't have the attention span for that. And what happened was one time, I've had a job since I was 14. I've always had a job. I grew up without any money, very poor. And I always have had to have a job. And finally, I had sabbatical from my teaching job and I went to LA and I decided that I was going to do everything like kind of opposite that I'd ever done it. And I was also going to do it in reaction to this, like being frustrated by spending all day trying to make this one picture and it not happening. And I was going to think about my work as a kind of lifestyle project where I was going to think about what my body wanted to do and do that. And my body wants to walk around. And forever I've been schlepping this giant view camera around. And I was like, I'm going to get a digital camera and I'm going to walk the streets of LA all day and make pictures of whatever the hell I want. And that's what I did in this book called I'm Looking Through You. There's another one where the title finally helped me know what I was doing. And it was really like a revolution for me. It was like, sometimes I like to pretend not which artist I like best, but which artist's life I like best. Which artist would you like to be them? And of course, like for me, it was always like William Eggleston. I just want to wander around with a camera and take pictures, but I never kind of allowed myself to do that. And part of it is like, at this point, I'm kind of good at it. So it's like I could make tons of these things, and my conditioning is not to go out there and go and take a million pictures. I take one or two. I'm used to doing it that way. This was a big show. It's a book from Aperture. Blah, 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 blah. But more, it was a kind of way of being in the world. I realized that this was the way that was going to help me be sane. And so when I got back here, I started thinking about how to keep going in this way, but have a different view on it. And so I've always thought about this idea of the event horizon. That an event horizon is where the gravity is finally released from a black hole. So if you're, or the opposite, but it's like, where light can just not get into that black hole. And so, I've always thought my house is on the 100-mile mark exactly from New York City on the tracks. This is the 98, but it's just a better picture than the 100. And I've always thought that, like, if I have an event in New York that night, like I have a group show I'm in, and like, if I'm in my kitchen, I'm like, I think I'm going to this. Or if I'm in my kitchen, I'm like, nah, I'm not going. But if I'm home, I'm like, nah, okay, sorry. If I'm in my living room, I'm not going. If I'm in my kitchen, I am going. Oh, that didn't work out, but it's like the gravity of the city is pulling at me. And, when it releases, there's a beauty. There's some kind of beauty there. And it harkens back to this notion of wanting to be free and wanting to be in a sort of unexplored zone, wanting to be in a place where it wasn't so precious, where not everything was a special thing that we're all doing. And so for the last 7 years or so, I've been pretty much constantly wandering around, making pictures of everything I can that I feel has this kind of spirit of being a little bit outside of the gravity of the dominant culture, a little bit drifting off in its own world. I understand that since I did this to now, the culture has come here in a pretty profound way. So these are all pictures of Kingston. Kingston is always my test ground. It's the first place I go. It's a place I can go and still pick up my kid at school at the end of the day. I prefer to have all day. If I could have all day to just wander around, I would do that every day. I would love to do that and do nothing else. But I can't do that. There's a lot of meeting of people. I love meeting people. I love talking to strangers. Everybody knows where that train guy is, right? That's in the Model Train Club over there, just a few blocks away. This guy was amazing. He lives down in the Rondout. Incredible. He just got out of jail. He had robbed a vape store. That guy looked like he might rob a vape store. The pictures are of people, they're of places, they're of things, they're of experience, and they speak to me of this idea of like picture hunger. I have picture hunger, and if you're a photographer, you likely have picture hunger. You want it, and you're greedy, and you want more, and you want to keep doing it, and the best one is just over there, just around the corner, and you could do it all day. There's this kind of 10,000-hour Malcolm Gladwell thing of like, you just do it enough and you get good at it. I got used to in that other book of pairing pictures. This is nothing. These are I put these together just for this talk. But I love playing little games with the way the two pictures work They're not subtle necessarily games. Always ask Gary. That's in a furniture making place over here. That's at the Dutch church. That's at the Carmelite sisters' home over there. Lisa calls it the Caramelized Nunions. That's it. That other one's in the Blondie's Trolley Diner. Everybody remember Blondie's Trolley Diner? What a great place that was. Fantastic place. That guy probably robbed a vape store too. The parents of that person on the right are here. That guy's over on the 199 just getting over the bridge, and it's just so, you know, these are coming directly from my life, and they're also coming from this process of wandering, of just being in the world and, you know, praying to the photography gods. Do you know how to pray to the photography gods? Anyone here? You do it. The photography gods demand sacrifice, and that's our bad pictures. If you make tons and tons of bad pictures, they reward you with just happening to be there when something great happens every once in a while. So this is now, I forgot to put something in this lecture that I meant to. This is now a giant, I hate this word. This is the worst word in the world right now, archive. Ugh. Hate myself for saying it. The worst catchword of art, the art world, archive. But it is. It's a giant archive of images. And the way I've been showing it, I have a show right now at the University of Kentucky Art Museum. I've been showing it just as tons of prints that are laid out and people can go through them. And I've been really waiting for the Guggenheim to call me and do it on the thing, you know, on a big spiral. But I really love doing it. I love not turning my pictures into furniture, right? So, you know, you got to like take your photographs, you got to turn them into furniture. And that's a pain in the ass. And people love touching them. They love holding them. They love rearranging them. When we were editing the LA book, we discovered that it almost didn't matter what order they went in, that every order seemed right. And I asked Aperture, could we make each book a different order? And they were like, yes, the book will cost $3,000. Which maybe would have been a good idea. Sometimes it's just like light that I'm looking at. It's being attentive. It's constantly being attentive, right? Which is, to me, not a chore. I'm writing an essay about this work where it begins, I don't know if this is art. I'm not sure if it is. I know that it itches the tickle in the back of my ADHD mind to be able to gather everything together at one time, press a button, and the damn thing is done. That is great. If you have ADHD, get a camera. All you got to do is gather it one time, boom, and then you don't have to mishigas figure out what to do with it afterward. You do have to figure that out, but you don't have to make tons of decisions after that one big decision. And I find teaching is a lot like that too, that you have to be kind of present. You have to pay attention to what's in the room. And actually, I take my classes here a lot. That's my class in a lighting factory that's over there somewhere. That's my son and his friend. This woman is doing a sleep study over here, really nearby. There's the Dutch church again in a way that you see you can't like get over certain things. Sometimes it's just light you're looking at. Sometimes it's movement. Sometimes it's just color. Sometimes it's a feeling about what's happening in the world. That's in the Honduran restaurant right over there. Like all these kids are eating and this bloody, violent movie is on. So I'm going to quickly parallel to two quick little things that are sort of in the future, ongoing and in the future. That picture on the right is made out one of the two quick checks. You know, there's those two quick checks right next to each other over at the traffic circle. One of Kingston's defining features. There's two quick checks right next to each other. And there's two other quick, yeah, small one and big one. So I've been thinking a lot about gas stations, filling stations as a place, the most democratic place in America. The place where every kind of person is, every political stripe, every gender, every sexual orientation, every economic status. We're all there. We're all trying to figure out what we can get to eat in there that is not the worst possible thing. Cashews for me, usually. So I've been hanging out in these places, and I really want to do a big project called Filling Station. And maybe some of you will help me get a Guggenheim to travel around and take pictures of filling stations. But they really are amazing. Like these quick checks are incredible. You find unhoused people charging their phones, and you find douchebags charging their Teslas. Sorry. Sorry, every half of you guys, probably. So that's a kind of a thing that's ongoing, and Kingston provides, right? Kingston provides everything here. Every possible subject matter, every kind of person, every level of education, every economic status. So I'm going to finish with a couple of short things from a new project that no one has seen. And I'm making a project called Giant Corporation. While I'm making these photographs, I started writing a lot of songs, and then I started writing little teeny tiny songs and making little teeny tiny videos of comedic things. So these are going to be some kind of social media thing called Giant Corporation. So I'm going to just show you 3 made in Kingston. So you're getting an early glimpse. And why isn't it going? The next time I see you, we'll have a bird bath tequila. Bird bath tequila. Bird bath tequila. I'm Kathy Wiener, attorney at law. I got an office in the building near a hearing aid store. Kathy Wiener, attorney at law. Hearing aid store. Kathy Wiener. I like to bring in the actual sound of the video. Sometimes I'm writing the song right while I'm doing it. Okay, so I'm going to end with this. This is the last one. Anybody that wants to get up and dance? All you need in this life, all you need in this life, all you need in this life are 2 things that you love, that you love, that you love, that you love. Thank you, and thanks, Sarah, for inviting me here. Any questions? You know I can answer your questions, and I'm not shy. Any question? Yes. How do you know when a project is done? You run out of money. No, I mean, that's a great question. Again, this project, the Upstate Event Horizon project, probably should be done. Probably should not spend every waking minute wandering around making those pictures. But circumstances have led to what I thought the book was going to come out, not coming out. That's a whole other conversation. And so I just keep doing it. And I kind of don't mind the idea that it's just going to turn into, I mean, if I'm going to fill the Guggenheim with it, I got to have a lot. So I don't mind doing it. And I love doing it. It helps me do all the things I want. Again, art is somewhat constitutional, right? Like you don't do a thing that you don't, like your body doesn't want to do. You shouldn't pick a job that your body doesn't want to do. Like sitting in an office in a publishing company, my body did not want to do that. But it does want to wander around. And while it's wandering around, it likes to do other things like collect records, which is a thing I do. If anybody's getting rid of all their records and they were a jazz critic, let me know. But also write songs. You can write songs when you're not taking pictures. You can just be busy the whole entire day. So I don't know. Other ones are you have an exhibition that you know is coming up and you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to fit this in. There's lots of other work I've made that's sort of for an exhibition or that's been curated for a space, right? Did anybody read How Music Works by David Byrne? It sort of postulates that like music is sort of created for a space. Certain kinds of music were made for certain spaces, right? Like the Talking Heads wouldn't have been good in Carnegie Hall. It would have bounced all over the place, but in CBGB's, it sounded great. So sometimes you have a project that is for a space, and sometimes you have it because you can't stop yourself. Any other questions? Yeah. Switched from black and white to color. It's a great question. I never studied color photography, like I never did it in school. And the only reason I started doing it was because Seth Rubin, who's here, got a job because Lawrence Miller Gallery was like, we have all these William Eggleston negatives. Can you go in the studio, into the darkroom, color darkroom, and make giant contact sheets of them? This was the work that ended up being Los Alamos, right? And we went in there and I was like, I got to learn how to print color for this. I'd never done it. He taught me, I think, right? And so I was like, wow, this is cool. And then, you know, in terms of one's career, if I brought in the box of my Bard pictures, the Wanting Attention pictures, they have a sticker on it from the Museum of Modern Art because you could drop off your pictures at the Museum of Modern Art and they would look at them. And there was a chance they would be like, it was like, you know, Johnny Carson calling you back onto the couch. Like you could, maybe they would want to buy them or maybe they want to see more and they didn't. And that was it. I just kind of stopped. I just kind of was like, poetry. I got it. I got this. But I was never meant to be a poet. I mean, I can write, but I can't be a poet because I'm not smart enough. I am currently, that picture I made earlier was in black and white, and I am starting to make some 4x5 black and white pictures of events, things that you shouldn't photograph with a 4x5. Also, I want to create a team of evil photography geniuses to come up with the perfect thing that everybody would buy and work together. I assume that would be in black and white. Yeah.
What kind of assignments do you give your students?
What do you remember? What do you remember that I gave you?
Photograph like the culture. Like they're all over the place. Sometimes it's like
That one didn't work.
yeah, no.
I wanted to make pictures that were explicitly commenting on the culture around them. Like, how do you do that? Could you do that? Oh yeah, make a body of work for someone you have a crush on that you anonymously leave outside their door and that would attract them to you just by the photographs. That was like a Valentine's Day assignment. Yeah.
I'm famously not the photo curator at the Guggenheim, but I do think you're one of the coolest photographers that I've ever met, so I hope that you get that shot.
Oh, thanks, man. I never hardly tried to do anything. This is another of my whatever is going on there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, why do you feel so, one of the things, I've never met you before 2 years ago at Bard. And now I've followed you since then, and I so I have a small window into your character as well as your work.
Uh-oh.
Why do you, or how do you, Tim Davis, feel so entitled to make this kind of art? And it seems like you have felt that entitlement to the art for so long. And that's positive. That's not
Good.
Yeah.
I'll take it that way. It's because I can't not do it. It's not even a choice. Today Seth was in my class, and we kind of noticed, right? You notice anyone that's taught art, the people that have the little fire inside of them, the little flame, little ember that everyone's trying to keep the thing burning, right? And there's others that don't, right? That it's a real slog for them to make art, and there's other ones that just don't. And as a child, I was totally unsupervised. I grew up in this town, very much like Kingston, Saratoga Springs, and I just would, at 5 years old, I would walk into town, go to the movies by myself, meet strangers. And I learned constitutionally that that's what I like to do. I like to wander around. I'm not good at planning anything. I can't see into the future well, but I can be in the moment very well. And so it just helps me to do it. The other thing about it is I think that it seems to me an act of generosity to put somebody, say, or some building or some object in a beautiful thing, in a great work of art, right? It's like, it just seems like I feel generous in that way, even though I also don't think of photography as a thing that's like an exhaustible resource, right? It's a renewable resource. Baudrillard was wrong, right? We see things newly all the time. There's not that many subjects, like you get students that go, I don't want to do that because it's a cliche. Well, it's only a cliche in your heart. There's no subject matter that's a cliche. What are the 3 stories? There's 3 stories, right? There's a stranger appears in town, I'm going on a long journey, and boy meets girl, or girl meets girl, or identified as whatever they are, meets identified as whatever they are. Those are the 3 stories, right? I forget who said that. Somebody. Yeah.
It's been 20 years, almost 20 years since the politics book came out.
Yeah.
Does that subject still interest you?
Oh, God, no. It does not interest me at all. I remember a moment in like 2004 or 5, and I was giving a lecture at UNC in a big lecture hall, and I said a thing, I was like, I'm not being partisan in this work. Like, I feel like I'm as critical and as celebratory of the left, of my side, as I am of the right. And I said, somebody said, what do you mean? I was like, well, for example, street protests, I don't think are a thing that works anymore. I don't think that's how we've changed things. And someone said, well, how do you change things? I said, terrorism. And then I was like, oh, shit. Serious, man. And terrorism would change things like that. Blow up Fox News. Somebody do it. Why aren't we doing that? But no, I thought of that work as being complicated, variegated, and looking at this culture. And now I'm just like, holy God, what's gone on? But I don't want to, I can't do it. I don't know if art can do it. Terrorism, though, could do it. Sorry, Waleed. Yeah. Could be. Maybe it could be.
It's not terrorism, it's freedom fighting.
It's what?
Freedom fighting.
Freedom fighting, yeah. That's good. I think that all the ways the left has of doing it we're doing it to make ourselves feel better. But Nixon, like quaking in the White House because people were like marching in the streets of Washington, like these guys aren't marching, they aren't quaking because we're marching. We got to do something else, some other thing. Yeah.
Do you encounter subjects from your earlier work in Kingston when you're out and about?
Great question. Great question. Pete was saying that I ought to invite, what's his name? Sully. I was out photographing. Okay, so if you know where like the old IBM building and there's the Esopus, right, goes behind it, and walking back in the weird weeds back there and getting every possible tick-borne illness that you could get. And I encounter these two guys, and they're like, I forget, electrical surveyors, and we're hanging out. And then later on, and I photograph them. Later on, I go into Adams, and he's in there. He's like the fishmonger. And he's like, hey! I'm like, hey! As for like the people from the 80s, like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them aren't alive. I'm sure some of them aren't here, but I would love to find them again. It'd be great. Yes?
Why did you find Kingston more exciting than New York City to photograph?
Why did I find Kingston more exciting than New York? I mean, look at the place. Well, there's a lot of reasons. One is geographical and geological. Like the whole New York City is flat. It's a grid. It's like being on a stage. The people are really interesting. The photographs of New York, largely that are interesting, are of people. But I wasn't going to go make street photographs, especially then. I just didn't know how to do that. I wasn't interested in that. And there was this thing of like, I just was like, if I know about it, it's over already. Like, I just didn't feel like I was on the forefront of anything. And I was used to being like, if I go out here and photograph, well, nobody else is doing it. I'm the only one, I felt like. And that's obviously not true. You're all here and you're all photographed. And lots of people are, and there's all kinds of great photographers. But again, but I really think, like, when I went to grad school at Yale, I was like, New Haven. It was another one. I was like, this is the perfect place. It's got every possible thing. And we have every possible thing here. It's a port city. You can get to the mountains are there. It's got everything. And it's really odd. I mean, Kingston is very strange. And part of it is geographical, right? You've got all these little hollers that are cut off from each other. You go into Ponkhockey, and it's like being in West Virginia. It was like being in West Virginia. And just the neighborhoods are not connected. It's very strange, and I think strange is good. And I know New York is strange. I think maybe say again.
And the neighborhoods are not connected either in New York.
There aren't neighborhoods. It's a grid. It's all one thing. They're artificial. They're all artificial except for some of them, the Gowanus Canal. But every other one is like realtors put it there. You're just in a grid. You're walking from one thing to another. You're in a video game. That's how I feel when I'm in New York. I hate New York. Yeah.
We talked about New York, photography of people.
Yeah.
Can you talk about
Are you married to that guy? Okay, good.
Can you talk about wanting attention and what makes a good photograph of people, and how did you find your way to pass the message?
Okay, so when you teach, you get magical, like, students, geniuses that know how to press a button, point a camera at someone, press a button, and capture some strange, indefinable, in-between, interior, strange thing about them. You know them right away, right, Tanya? Those people that are the portrait people, they just know how to see in some kind of in-between way, and they're attentive to the human body. in the spirit. I'm not like that. I'll tell you a story. Can I keep going here? A couple of summers ago, I played a show of my songs at this like hipster bar in Williamsburg. I opened for a band called Horny. I'm like playing my clever little funny songs, and like everyone's there to see this punk girl black punk band called Horny. Nobody paid any attention to me. After the show, it was a beautiful warm summer night. This young woman came up to me, beautiful young woman, and she was like, "God, I love your songs. That was incredible, and I know your photographs are amazing." And I was like, "Hi," like. Whoa, I think I remember what flirting is like. It's been a long time, but I think I remember. And we were talking, and she was like, "Hey, why don't you take a picture of me and I'll take a picture of you?" And I was like, "Okay," like, great. So we did it. Then we looked at, we didn't do it. We did that. And we looked at the two pictures. Her picture was of me. It wasn't a good picture. But it was an interesting picture of me. It was all about me. My picture was great. The lights were the lighting was amazing. The color was cool. The form, the composition, everything was great. She was just a kind of a figure. I describe my photography in I'm Looking Through You as medieval. That like I'm kind of a medieval photographer. That like it's not realistic exactly. And so I have to do things to compensate for maybe not being like the greatest at knowing what's going on inside of you. That has to do with physicality, right? So you can put people in a frame. You can see what's interesting in the background. You can make them, and occasionally I get a good one where I capture some little thing about a person. The view camera is great at it because you're not looking through a camera. The camera's here and you're looking right at them. And that helps. That's why those pictures are probably my best. I mean, the new work, you didn't see a lot of the great ones, but there are great pictures of people, and there's tons of them. But often they're a little person in a big landscape. I'm not good at that. That isn't one of my strengths, I'm afraid. Sorry. Anybody else? Questions? I got yeah.
You mentioned earlier about whenever you go out and you're shooting, and sometimes you're shooting, you're like really intrigued by the light, and other times it's the color. And I was wondering, when you're thinking about color, what specifically draws you to it? Is it like a fluorescence, or is it just like the color itself, or like a luminosity, or something? I don't know.
Okay, questions about color. How do you know when the color is interesting in your picture? Right, so I teach sometimes the color class. Some of you have been in that class. And it's really interesting, right? Like not everybody sees color. 17% of men are colorblind. You're colorblind. But there's another side of it, which is like, that other thing where I was like, you have a certain kind of ambition. Like everybody has some level of ambition, and we do it. It's like, I don't take a color picture unless the color is interesting. I just don't do it. I have lots of pictures of things that are interesting, but I'm like, the color. This is the point in time when the green shows up. I hate that time because the green is everywhere, right? It's like, if you asked Matisse, like, you have to have green in your picture, Matisse would tell you to fuck off, right? Taisez-vous. But so I just don't do it. And that I think of as a kind of discipline or a kind of ambition, right? Where it's like, this picture's good, the color sucks. It's not interesting. I'm not saying that I understand why it is, but all I'm saying is that part of in the fluctuating meter of why you're choosing to make a picture of something, like the part where if it's going to be in color, it's like, well, okay, that part has to be a big part of the content. It has to be part of it. And if it's not, I don't know, it's just a picture that happens to be in color. And not saying every one of my pictures of color is good. It's just I made sure when I took it that it was. And if it wasn't, I probably didn't print it. it's just a seeing thing, I think. And it's also part of that thing of like picture hunger, which is like a new thing for me. I feel like there's an essay out there called Picture Hunger, but it's sort of like we see in pictures. If you're a photographer, you see in pictures. And so that part of your hunger is like, oh shit, the color is amazing in here. This picture I took of you guys is the worst. It's all wrong. The light is bad. It's terrible. It might not come out at all. I wouldn't take that picture normally, right? Yeah. Tanya.
I didn't think I had a question, but it occurs to me that I'm curious if you feel that Susan Sontag really missed something or her perspective. And I recently reread On Photography with a group of students, and I realized for me, I felt like I could almost replace many of her words that she describes photographers and photography, voyeurism, violence, all of these things, and I felt like I could replace them in my own mind. I don't know if I'm kidding myself, but I feel it in your work, like curiosity, attention, generosity, love, questioning, existence, the loneliness, so I'm just curious your thought about that.
Yes. Yeah, look, I understand the history of complicated power dynamics in photography. I understand photojournalists especially, and the distribution of images, super complicated. But under that, if we put that aside for a second, I think there is no more generous human function than photography that's ever existed, right? Everything that's been written down had to be written down by somebody literate. It had to be preserved somehow. It was so filtered by the time it got to language. And the history of photography is so full of accidents. 90% of each of these pictures I didn't even notice. And I notice a lot, but there's a lot I don't notice. So I just think of it as this incredible boon to humanity, the way we understand it. And I often talk about it in terms of, like, if you think about, what's his name? Ken Burns. And you're like, okay, here we are at Appomattox, and here's the generals, and blah, 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 blah. And then he zooms way past the generals, and in the back, way over there, are the slaves. And that one slave became the first senator from, black senator from North Carolina in Reconstruction, whatever. I made that up. But that thing of, like, the photographer didn't notice those guys. He did not care about those guys. But they're there, recorded forever, for Ken Burns or whoever else to attend to. And so there's all this incredible, again, I hate saying it, but the archive of the history of photography is the biggest, most exhaustive, and the least filtered archive that there is, I think. And it's like so much we know about humanity. When you look at a Walker Evans picture and you're like, oh, look at that, all those things, those details that don't exist anymore. Who was it just the other day said, oh, it was David Campany said, like, Walker Evans said, how do you make a good photograph? He said, wait 30 years. These things have power, like, down the line. So I mean, I'm an evangelist for the positive benefits, both personal health and societal, not Pollyanna-ish about every other use of it, that like everything else can be perverted, used against race, class, gender, and every other thing in a fucked up way. But, oh God, it's so generous. It's so good for us. It's so healthy. You all do it. You love doing it. You love it. Every time you go, ooh, here's a good one, you get a little feeling on the back like your mommy going, good job. That's pure health, pure goodness. Paid for by the Photography Council of America. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone. Just a little plug. I forgot. I was so excited to get started. I forgot to mention that I literally printed these today. Our summer workshop series. Some of the instructors are in the audience now. So please take a look if you're interested. There's a lot of information also at the next exhibition. So thank you all for coming. Next week is Nina Berman.